Welcome to Tips for Human Resilience. While our regular Airiam podcast covers topics related to cyber and human resilience, our Tips for Human Resilience is focused on helping leaders in the workforce help their organizations. This is Art from Airiam, and today's episode is focused on incident response retainers. Now, IR retainers, why do you need them? First of all, they lock in the price. So they're going to reduce the entire impact of your incident. Next, they take care of a lot of that contractual paperwork that has to be done in an incident. When you get a IR retainer with a firm, you can hash out those SLAs and the legal issues and liability and things like that ahead of time, well before an incident with counsel. If you wait until an incident to engage an IR firm and they hand you an agreement, then you either are rushed to sign or you're having to deal with lawyers last minute, and this is all slowing down the response to your incident. Also, having an IR retainer with an IR team gives you a peace of mind, letting you know that you have some experts to engage. You have an escalation path, you know how to engage them, you know how to bring them in on an incident, and it's going to enable you to respond faster, really depending on the SLA of the company. Now, I've noticed some very big brand security and IR companies out there have not only very high rates, but also very long SLAs. If you put in a ticket saying you have ransomware, you may get a call 4 hours later, 8 hours later, 12 hours later, depending. So really, you want to work with a firm that has a lower SLA or will extend a lower SLA with you, will respond to you quickly when there's an incident and start handling things immediately. That is what's going to lower the impact of an event for you. Let's say you realize that you're under attack, somebody noticed, a command line or command prompt open on their computer and somebody's remotely typing in commands. And, you engage one of these companies as a 12-hour SLA. The attack's over by the time the IR team gets engaged. They already have your data. They already have all your customers' data. They already have encrypted your systems. They understand everything about your network by that point. And it's too late to prevent at that point. Now you're in cleanup phase. Where if you have an IR retainer with a team, and let's say they have a 1 hour or 2 hour SLA, they can probably stop most of the damage of this attack, before it is really catastrophic to your organization. Now, if you don't have a retainer and you call cyber insurance, usually they will, work with you and encourage you to call an IR team on their list, call a cyber legal firm on their list, which I encourage everybody sets up a relationship with cyber legal as well. But engaging all of these vendors after an incident and getting all of those relationships set up afterwards is really a slow way to get started. And, we've seen incidents that are really delayed for 48 hours to start the cleanup because of, legal contractual issues and working out those agreements before we can even get engaged. So take care of those beforehand with a retainer, with an agreement, with the team, and with cyber legal as well. This will just help your IR plan. Right now, where your IR plan may be call George, call Bob, call our MSP. When you have an IR retainer and let's say you have a relationship with cyber legal, you are so much further ahead in actually being able to respond when there's an incident. So those are the key reasons to have an IR retainer. Let's talk about some differences between some IR retainers. Most IR retainers are just a bucket of hours. So they'll give you a bucket of hours, and it's really discounted rate from their normal rate in order to have that bucket of hours. And then if there is any kind of hours that you need or are requesting after that bucket of hours, usually there's a slightly higher fee that you're going to have to pay per hour, but it's still discounted from their retail price. So basically that IR retainer is locking you in at a lower price. And by having that bucket of hours, you have basically an extension of your insurance policy. You're going to burn those hours first, and then that is reducing insurance risk as well. So insurance companies will look at you with an existing relationship with an IR team and a retainer for a certain number of hours. That's reducing your claim risk with them. That you are in a position to respond well, number one, but you're already paying for things that they would have to pay for at emergency rates later. So that is one reason to get it. But one thing that separates retainers is some of them include different SLAs, some of them include different number of hours, different after retainer prices, and then some of them include different things. So all of them include that bucket of hours. Some of them will include, tabletop exercises, where they'll practice an incident with maybe your executive team or IT team, conduct a tabletop exercise and practice. And some retainers will, also do kind of an IR planning session with you. So go through your existing IR plan and review it, revise it, build a new plan, make sure it's optimized. And that should be a part of your annual process with your IR retainer anyway, is to make sure that that's really optimized. So Airiam's IR retainer, we call it Air Rescue, includes all those things, but it also includes pre-breach vulnerability management, patching, project work. So basically that bucket of hours, instead of being something you either use or lose, or something that is you're investing money in these hours that you may never end up having to use, we are using those buckets of hours for proactive things to improve your security as you go. So we'll do a penetration test of your environment, and then anything that we recognize as gaps or vulnerabilities, we can spin up projects, and we can either quote those projects or use hours in the retainer for that remediation. So if you have a lot of hours, we can use that to nail some of the low-hanging fruit in your environment in order to improve your security. If it's a large project, let's say we do a penetration test and there's just something huge that needs to be taken care of, you probably don't want to burn your retainer hours because they're really higher valued. Then we can spin up a quote for a new project to improve whatever part of your network needs to be improved. It can be used for Windows Active Directory hardening, VM hardening, VMware hardening, patching firewalls, patching the systems, things like that. Those are optimal uses of this retainer, and I call that vulnerability management. Vulnerability management to me is patching and reducing my attack surface and really reducing risk through vulnerable points in my network. So that could be through hardening, decommissioning systems, etc. But that is one of the differentiators with Airiam's Air Rescue retainer, is that those hours you can really use for anything. Either way, I encourage any company to get an IR retainer, especially if whether or not you have cyber insurance. But since cyber insurance has been getting more and more expensive, it's becoming cost prohibitive for some companies to insure. And with the prevalence of these cyber attacks, it's happening to everyone, which is why the rate's going up. Everyone's experiencing these cyber attacks, so I encourage investment in a retainer in order to be prepared. And besides a retainer, be prepared by reviewing that IR plan. Be prepared by doing tabletop exercises. Be prepared by engaging a cyber legal firm and getting them on retainer, or if not on retainer, at least have them in your Rolodex so they're ready to go. So there's a lot to think about, but in the end, IR retainers are investments in hours that are basically at a better rate than you would have to pay later, and they are reducing your risk and reducing your insurance risk. Think of them as an extension of your insurance policy for the purpose of response and recovery. And key differentiator of the Airiam IR retainers is that those hours can be used for improvements before your breach. So our IR team will handle remediation, technical remediation, anytime, as a project, rather than waiting until you've been breached and then say, oh, well, we should have patched that years ago. Well, now you have our team to use to patch that. We hope you all enjoyed our podcast today. Please subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. New episodes usually come out every other Wednesday. For more information on Airiam, go to www.airiam.com.